Watch this.
He spent nearly a year in Afghanistan, continuing the military mission we started 2 decades ago. So as the last U.S. troops leave the country today, a Boise veteran is reflecting on his time in this hotbed of anti-American sentiment. As the deadline for some healthcare workers to get a COVID vaccine or get another job approaches, some Boiseans woke up to flyers at their door. One last push to get the legislature to prevent it from happening. And who wants to know? You want to know. Another round of viewer questions. You keep asking, so we keep answering. It was a war that began shortly after terrorist attacks that took out the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001. A major centerpiece of the war on terror was Afghanistan. Today, after almost 20 years, the United States military has left Afghanistan. A short time ago, the Pentagon announced they've completed efforts in evacuating remaining civilians and troops, effectively ending the longest war in American history. The exit strategy from Afghanistan has been heavily criticized in recent weeks as Americans and Afghans were put into dangerous situations as sudden exit operations began just as the Taliban quickly took control of the country. In the final days of this war, American troops continued fighting off those terrorist attacks and helped to evacuate thousands of Americans and Afghans. A final attack, a suicide bombing at the Kabul airport, left 13 American service members and hundreds of civilians dead. Now, we've spoken with Afghan refugees here in Boise who still have family back in Kabul. But what about the military perspective? Joe Paris spoke with a Boise veteran who says until recently, he hadn't yet fully reflected on his time serving in Afghanistan.
Got to see a very intimate part of Afghanistan, sort of the behind the scenes of the war, if you will. And it was eye-opening. It's a war, it's complex.
Greg Williams is a United States Army veteran who spent time serving in Afghanistan from June 2014 to March 2015. He says the word complex comes to mind when talking about his experience in Afghanistan.
I served on a private security detail for our regional commander, so the 2-star general that was in charge of the southern region of Afghanistan, basically tasked with taking him to key leader engagements and meetings and such. Making sure he stayed alive. So we did a lot of work with the Afghan National Army, a lot of their commanders, a lot of their political leaders.
Williams says after leaving Afghanistan and finishing his military service, he moved on and really didn't think about everything that he'd been through. That all changed in recent weeks as veterans like Williams watched the situation in Afghanistan quickly escalate. Evacuation operations became chaotic as the Taliban took control of Kabul.
It's been a roller coaster of emotions, honestly. It's mostly anger and sadness, to be honest. Obviously for the lives that were lost, that was obviously where my head went first is, the Marines and the soldiers that we lost were absolutely unnecessary. I think that every American service member knows when they enlist that they may be asked to give their life if needed. The unfortunate thing was in this case, I just don't think that it was needed. I think that it was poor execution and planning. That has not had accountability taken for it yet. And just all around, anger at the situation, something that just certainly did not need to happen. And even if it were to happen, it could have been executed much better.
I've spoken with local vets who tell me, frankly, we're frustrated because we were there, we worked hard, we lost friends, our lives were affected forever. And if you look at the end results, we don't feel like we made any difference.
Right.
How do you feel about that? I mean, I know you mentioned it's frustrating and it makes you angry and sad. And
yeah. I honestly feel like I've reconciled that question a little bit. When it first kicked off, that was like the immediate question is like, what was it for then? Why were we there? What was it for? And I think that certainly is probably the biggest question that vets are struggling to answer right now. What I keep reminding myself and what I would remind my fellow vets of is that if nothing else, while we were there, we made an impact. And we may have thought that it was going to be a lasting impact, and it may not be a lasting impact based on what we're seeing right now. But if nothing else, while we were there, we made people's lives better. Not everybody's, but we did make people's lives better. And if nothing else, it was worth that. We are Americans, and that's what we try and do is help people. And we helped people while we were there, and we should be proud of that now and forever going forward.
A tough reality that many Afghanistan veterans are dealing with is the fact that many of the Afghan people that they worked alongside will not be evacuated from danger.
The people that I honestly feel sorry for and the people that we as veterans keep talking about are the folks like interpreters and advisors and the people that just signed up to voluntarily try and help the U.S. to make their country better. to impact their family and their friends. But we're never asked to fight, and we're promised a better life coming out of this. And you know, for those people that we are leaving over there, whether it's an interpreter or an advisor or whatever it is, we promised them something, and that made it our mission. And we as Americans carry out the missions that we set out to accomplish, and we are not finishing this mission. We're leaving people over there, and I think that is where the majority of that anger stems from in the veteran community right now, is knowing that we are walking away from a mission.
Williams says there are certainly important conversations for the veteran and military community to have in the coming weeks. He hopes, though, that the recent headlines and legacy of the war in Afghanistan will get Americans thinking.
I really, truly hope that, if anything, the American public has an awakened sense of gratitude for living here after seeing things like people literally hanging on to the side of an airplane to get out of that country. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what they might, encounter. But they knew that anywhere other than that was better than where they were. People handing their babies over a wall. They don't keep great documentation over there. There's a good chance they'll never see that child again. If that doesn't spark something in the American mind of like, hey, I'm pretty lucky to live where I do, and maybe I should start paying attention to what's going on here so that we don't waste it all and let it all go down the drain, I don't know what possibly could. And in that case, we don't deserve the life that we get to live here.
That's a good point that he made right there, Joe. But one thing that you also pointed out earlier when we were talking about this, he hasn't really thought about Afghanistan since he left. And it kind of tells me how long this war has been going on. And even after he left, it was still going on. But because it was around so long, it was just kind of a thing. It just was always there.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Brian, just personally growing up from 2001 till today, like the Afghanistan war has been a constant background in my entire life. And I know I'm not the only one like that. I mean, there were people that were not even born on September 11, 2001 that turned 18 back in 2018, and they went and served for several years in Afghanistan. It's something that I think today a lot of veterans and a lot of people are going to talk about. The bookend, I guess you could say, the end of the Afghanistan war today as America finally formally leaves. It's something that I know that our veteran community is reflecting on, and there are tough conversations to have in the coming days, Brian.
Yep, it's not going to get any easier. It's not going to close just like that either. All right, thank you very much, Joe. Over the weekend, we did see several tributes to the 13 men and women who lost their lives in Afghanistan on Thursday, killed when a suicide bomber targeted the Kabul airport. So how do you show appreciation to those young people who knew the risks, put their lives on the line anyway? Well, you can see here, several local restaurants and bars decided, well, they were going to pour them a beer and commemorate them that way, placing 13 pints of beer on an empty table. A physical reminder of the toll. You can see the Meridian Bowling Lanes, Double Tap Pub in Boise, Sid's Garage in Meridian, Beer Guys Salon in Star, even Chick-fil-A did something. And these are just some of the pictures that we saw sent in from around the area. We know a beer's never going to be enough to bring any of these guys back or even pay back the sacrifices many of these women and men face and their families. But we hope these gestures of gratitude are at least a start. In political parlance, it's called lit drop, where a candidate or supporters of a candidate canvass a neighborhood and drop off literature, literally on people's doorsteps. Pamphlets with pictures, sheets with slogans, that kind of stuff. Well, imagine being Senator Chuck Winder and opening your door this morning to find a piece of paper with your picture on it. Well, that's what happened for him and a whole lot of others in a West Boise neighborhood, except Senator Winder was the only one who got a picture of himself. Everyone else got a picture of, well, Senator Winder. We also got a few phone calls and messages about this, and from several reports we've seen, they were passed out by Health Freedom Idaho. Now, we reached out to confirm this, but they have yet to respond. Obviously, this flyer has to do with the private companies requiring employees to get the COVID-19 vaccine or get a new job, saying forcing medical products on the people will not be tolerated, and it wanted people to contact the senator's office and tell them to bring back the Idaho Senate to address this now, they said. And as Senator Pro Tem, Senator Winder has the power, Senate Pro Tem that is, Senator Winder has the power to do that. However, the likelihood still remains slim. He told us today, yes, he did get one of those flyers, but again, not much has changed since the last time we spoke with him about it. He said a majority of the majority caucus was firm in their belief. A vaccine requirement for employment is and should be between an employer and an employee. He told us, just like before, there isn't much of a consensus from any legislation from the Senate side, and that would require changing the status of Idaho being a work-at-will state, meaning if it doesn't violate any discriminatory or retaliatory or even public policy, a worker can be terminated at any time for any reason with or without notice, including not following employment requirements like following proper safety protocols or not getting a vaccine. Rules are rules, but are they laws or mandates? And what's the difference? And what about this coin shortage that's not really a shortage at all? We're answering your viewer questions and addressing your concerns as well when it comes to insects in harm's way. So keep sending us your questions to the 208. It's as simple as just sending us a text message. If you haven't memorized our number yet, here it is, 208-321-5614. Just be sure to include your name and, of course, the hashtag the 208. That way we know it's for us. No question? No problem. Text us your story ideas and even your comments about today's show to that number as well. We're going to share a few at the end of the show. All right, well, viewer voicemails aside, we like it when you reach out to us and let us know how we're doing. We like it even more when you ask us questions we can answer and hopefully help fill 30 minutes of television. Like this one from Anna Lee. I just left the Fred Meyers on Federal Way where I paid cash. The cashier told me that due to a coin shortage, my change will be credited towards my next purchase and I won't be getting it back. If it's that bad, why isn't anyone else doing it? Well, I have seen other stores putting up similar signs around the Treasure Valley, Anna Lee, but technically it's not a coin shortage, more of a circulation problem, meaning we have enough coins out there, they're just not out and about circulating, not making it out of our purses and pockets. It's something that started last summer as people began to venture, or I should say, started to get back out and about after the lockdown. The director of the U.S. Mint, David Reiter, actually attributes the circulation problem to a decrease in cash transactions. More people using their credit and debit cards, not as much on the cash. U.S. Coin Task Force says as of May of this year, there's about $48.5 billion worth of coins in circulation. Certainly not a shortage by any stretch. They say a majority of that is actually sitting dormant inside America's 128 million households, or in that compartment in the middle of your car, like mine. Hence the circulation problem. So in May, the U.S. Federal Reserve put a cap on coin orders as a way to ensure that those coins are fairly distributed. Okay, so last year, the U.S. Mint produced 14.8 billion coins, which is a 24% increase over the previous year. So let's go back to this Fred Meyers thing. As that goes, there are a few options, at least according to their website. So let's say you're going to pay in cash and you're supposed to get that 62 cents back in change. You can either check out in a lane that has change available in the till, or you can just choose to, again, have that 62 cents loaded onto your loyalty card. You can use it the next time you're in Fred Meyers shopping. Or there's also a third option. Donate that 62 cents to a charity which aims to eliminate hunger in the communities which they serve. Obviously, this will differ from store to store, so before you go, just check out their website. Terry in Payette asks, Brian, can you explain the difference between a mandate and a law? So we've gotten this question a few times since this pandemic started, but it's also a good reminder. The biggest difference is how they come about. A law is passed by the legislature. You know, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, meaning it has to be approved by both the House and the Senate and then signed by the governor. A mandate is issued by the executive branch, the governor, or any other authoritative body. Agencies like public health districts or school boards, which are granted authority by the legislature. Also, a mandate is usually just a short period of time, like during a state of emergency. Laws, usually in place, well, always in place until changed by the legislature. So what's the same between the two? Well, both a law and a mandate, they do have the same power to be enforced. Obviously, this question has come up a few times as mask mandates are starting to reappear in some places as COVID hospitalizations rise across Idaho. City of Victor, by the way, in eastern Idaho decided they were going to reauthorize their indoor mask mandate for everyone, regardless of vaccination status. It's still a rule. The Boise School District issued a mask mandate for students and staff to start the school year. Now, just to reiterate, because we get this message a lot as well, Idaho has never had a statewide mask mandate. Mandates that we've seen have come from the local level, which is where Governor Little said they should come from, specifically from public health districts and cities and, of course, school districts. And very few actually remain in place. We wish we could say the tactics taken to get control of a deadly virus usually don't warrant a whole lot of TV time. But this year, well, that seems to be a bit different. And no, we're not talking about the coronavirus. We're talking about West Nile virus and the aerial application used by Ada County Mosquito Abatement Department. Once again, delayed twice, and after thorough consultations with area mayors last week, the dropping of insecticide from planes did in fact happen last Wednesday night. We were told the amount of chemical used, in this case dibrome, was basically about half a shot glass per acre. And if used properly, it's not supposed to be harmful to humans or animals, nor was it supposed to harm any other insect. However, on Thursday morning, after the spraying took place the night before, several residents in an Eagle neighborhood, in several Eagle neighborhoods, in fact, near the river, they told us they walked out to this on the ground. Lots of dead ladybugs and wasps and dragonflies and praying mantis, even some grasshoppers who were struggling to move. These pictures were also sent to the Ada County Mosquito Abatement Department, people saying this was a problem. And they also wanted to know, well, what could be done about it? One woman we spoke with this morning who didn't want to go on camera told us she collected about 90 ladybugs from her driveway. So we reached back out to Adam Schroeder, the director of Ada County Mosquito Abatement District, who is seemingly filling a regular spot here on the 208. He told us reports like this they have to be evaluated by a third party. And when it comes to insecticide usage, that falls to the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, who just happened to be conducting a use inspection during this aerial application process last week. And those investigators, when it comes to ill effects on other insects, well, they have to follow specific protocols when collecting those samples to evaluate.
Now, in this case, we have contacted ISDA when we saw a couple of these insect kills. Unfortunately, the sample size has to be a certain amount before any traceable detection can be made as far as insects go. So in this case, they weren't able to evaluate this specimen.
It's basically, you have to collect them a certain way, you have to get a decent size amount, and they have to be in a short amount of time.
That's correct. Yep.
What you've seen, the pictures that we've seen, this is unusual for this kind of application.
We have to be careful with anecdotal evidence because if I'm looking at a photograph of a bunch of dead insects, I don't know where those insects were collected. I don't know how they were collected. I don't know, what the circumstances were involved when we see insects like that. So that's why it really takes an independent third party to really kind of take a look at those and collect those samples accurately. However, we do take these complaints very seriously. And so all this anecdotal evidence that we're really seeing coming in from the public, we are documenting for future reference. And then of course, our commissioners can take that into consideration next time something like this comes up.
So there really isn't enough to confirm whether these dead insects came from the dibrome that was sprayed last Wednesday. And again, they have to be collected a certain way to avoid cross-contamination, and they have to have enough to test. We're told enough to fill a quart. And they have to be picked up pretty close to when they died. And as far as that use inspection, this application was under last week, we're told by the ISDA, well, that case is still open, so they can't comment specifically to it. But they told us these products have been used for years, legally and appropriately for years in mosquito abatement districts across the country. This case is expected to be closed by the end of this week, which means we may get to talk about mosquitoes at least one more time. But in all seriousness, West Nile is a serious virus. According to Fish and Game, it has about a 35% mortality rate in unvaccinated horses. And just last week, there was one death in Ada County attributed to West Nile virus. A man in his 50s who just happened to live in one of the areas where they sprayed. Schroeder told us today they're already seeing a huge reduction in mosquitoes carrying West Nile after Wednesday night's aerial application. They're hidden all over our neighborhoods, free little libraries. But an anonymous dog lover decided to make one for our four-legged friends in a very dog-friendly area of Boise. Have you seen anything cool around the 208? You know, you can send us a picture and tell us about it. The number, 208-321-5614. Include your name and the hashtag the 208. That way we can give you some credit. Don't have an idea? That's okay too. You can still send us a message about anything we've talked about on today's show. And stick around, we're going to share a few as we wrap things up. You've likely seen the free little libraries in neighborhoods throughout the Treasure Valley. Maybe you have one in yours. Little boxes that are perched up above the ground, almost mailbox height, right? Usually painted a bright color, shaped like a house. Inside, books from all kinds of different genres. A little library, right? And you don't need a card to use it. The idea is to take a book and just leave one in its place. Well, someone in Boise's North End decided, yeah, books are great. What about balls? After all, as the saying goes, you can't live in the North End if you don't have a dog, right? So someone made a little dog library that is so Idaho. Again, instead of books, they have things that dogs enjoy. The sign reads, take a stick, leave a stick, take a ball, leave a ball, and you can see there's a variety of them. Sticks and tennis balls left for all the good boys out there to enjoy in their walks in the North End. Not sure who put this here or how long it has been up there, but it's been a pretty big hit. We've seen some pictures of dogs enjoying it. If you want to check it out, it's on streets. It's on the Resige Street between 4th and 5th Street. So you can walk by there and pick one up for yourself, or for your dog, actually. All right, just under a minute to go in the show today. Let's get to your comments that you sent in. A couple of them on mask mandates. You have the right not to be vaccinated, but just as you have that right, your employer has the right and responsibility to maintain a safe workplace for everyone. This is vaccine requirements, not mask. If you don't like that, start your own business or find a like-minded place to work, says Andrew, which is a lot of people, or there are a lot of people out there who seem to agree with you, Andrew. With the school masks recommendations in place, could the school districts designate a specific school for non-mask students and the rest masked? That way the people that have done the right thing can protect themselves. I guess the biggest issue with that would be with transportation. If a student wanted to go to that, they'd have to travel far distance possibly, but a lot of logistics that might stop that. Afghanistan, like Vietnam, our military duty was always completed to do the best of our training and abilities. Let's leave on this one here from Bill. I thank you all who served in Afghanistan.